Why do we put shoes on horses?
Well, on the farm, usually if they're not being ridden or they're not doing some kind of activity, the horses that need shoes, there's some issues with their feet. We normally try to get them out of shoes, and with some proper trimming and proper care, we can usually get them out of shoes. That being said, some horses, you get a couple months in the summer where the ground's really hard, or if you get long-term frozen ground in the winter, they just tend to get foot sore and they do better in shoes. It's a very few horses on the farm that would have to stay in shoes. So this guy that they're working on right now, I think that if we just get a little bit of a better angle on his hoof with some time, we'll be able to get him out of shoes, and I think he'll be fine.
Is it better for horses to be without shoes? What are the disadvantages?
It's preferable. The disadvantages, well, number one, if you're talking about a stallion, the disadvantages are, since thoroughbreds are live cover, they mount the mares, and the shoes with the mares can sometimes cause issues. You have to be really careful that the nail heads are clinched tight. There's no nail head protruding that could cut a mare. So you really prefer stallions to not be in shoes. But, there's plenty of really good stallions that do have to be in shoes, and, we just have to address the issues. It is preferable for a horse on the farm that is not in training or some kind of activity. It's definitely preferable for them to be barefoot.
Do the shoes hurt them in any way?
No, as a matter of fact, if you have a horse that needs them, if you make the decision that they do need them because there's some issues, usually they're sore, and then you put the shoes on and they walk out and they're very much relieved. So they can definitely be a help. We prefer not to need them, but if we do need them, they're a help.
I started with my dad when I was 10. I worked the forge for him, the coal forge. Then gradually got into pulling shoes and clinching, and when I turned 16, my dad gave me a couple outfits, and I started out shoeing and never stopped.
Is this in general difficult?
Pardon me?
Is this difficult in general?
Some horses you get are pretty nasty. They'll lay on you and get you tired out, but ones that are like these old brood mares, they're usually kind of easy to do.
How about imagining, Frank?
Well,
What do you
that
think about
stallion there,
imagining?
that's a little different story. We trank one stallion every time we do him, and he's a bit of a nut. And he can't get his hind right up, so about every other time is when we only get him done on the hind. But other than that, everything on this farm is pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's our worst case scenario.
He's the one that gets my heart pounding every time I go to do him. And these guys got to trank them, and it's hard to even get them tranked. So
Yeah, that's another feat in itself. So we trim we try and trim their feet. These mares usually will do every about 6 to 8 weeks. Their nails, or their hooves are like nails where they grow rather long, and it causes all sorts of problems for them if you don't keep them trimmed nice. It's not good for their health to not have their feet trimmed like on a regular kind of schedule. We trim the brood mares that are barefoot without shoes every 6 to 8 weeks. We try to keep, it's kind of a rotation. Frank here will do 6, 7 a day. Once a week we have him come on Tuesdays, and we'll kind of go through, and by the time we get finished, we're kind of back to our in another 8 weeks, we're going through again and starting back at the first set that we had started with. The stallions who wear shoes, we like to keep them done every 4 to 6 weeks. It really depends on the horse and how fast their feet grow. Every horse grows different. Some horses will go back at 6 weeks, and Frank will say there's really not too much growth here, not much to cut off, so we'll push them and let them go another couple weeks before. Other horses, you know, at 4 weeks, I'm kind of like, wow, maybe we need to recheck, come back to her because her feet are really grown out. So it really depends on the horse. Every horse is different. When I worked on the racetrack, it was every 4 weeks. Horses that are in training have shoes on. They're pretty much getting their feet done every 4 weeks, once a month. Sometimes after a trimming, if they've gone too long and their toe was really long, you cut some off and it makes them sore. So you'll see that they could be sore for a couple days, but then they feel better once they get, you know, back into the feel of having normal length toes.
You like to leave a little more foot on them after you pull the shoes, these brood mares, so they don't sore up. You have a little more foot to walk on.
Our mares, the brood mares, some of them get sore feet, sore in their front feet. So we put shoes on only the front feet, not the hind feet. And then, you know, in the summertime when they're stomping flies with their front feet and things like that, it makes their feet sore. So sometimes they need to wear shoes. Sometimes they only wear shoes in the summer, and in the winter when they're not stomping flies, their feet aren't as sore, so they can go barefoot throughout the winter. Some horses need to wear front shoes all year round because they have sensitive feet and they're sore all the time. Shoes for horses are just like shoes for us, where you know, if you were to not have shoes on and you're gonna walk on rocks, you're gonna be like, ow, that hurts.
Yeah. Come on.
Where if you have your shoes on, you can walk on rocks and it's not hurting you. So horses who have more sensitive feet will be sore walking around in certain areas, and then, you know, so we put shoes on them and then they can walk there and they're not sore. It doesn't hurt them.